Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ping Gui, and I am the Program Supervisor for the Volkswagen Mitigation Program for the South Coast AQMD. Today's presentation is designed to give you an overview and some details about the first solicitation for the combustion freight and marine projects category of the VW Mitigation Program. I'll begin with a brief background on the VW program and then dive into the main event, the combustion freight and marine projects category for the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust, which I'll refer to as the combustion category moving forward in this webinar. Then I'll cover some general category information, eligibility criteria, funding amounts, project timeline, and process overview, and end by answering some of the questions we received during registration. The VW Environmental Mitigation Trust is the result of the settlement with Volkswagen for their illegal use of defeat devices in certain 2.0 and 3.0 liter VW diesel vehicles, and the VW Trust Funds are intended to fully mitigate the excess NOx emissions caused by VW's actions. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, is the designated lead agency acting on the state's behalf as beneficiary to implement California's allocation of VW trust funds. CARB approved a Beneficiary Mitigation Plan, BMP, which identified program criteria for the state and the 5 funding categories shown in the pie chart. These project categories are administered statewide by 3 different air districts, but today's focus will be the combustion category administered by the South Coast AQMD. The first solicitation for the combustion category is currently open and will close on March 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Eligible projects under this category include Class 7 and 8 freight trucks, including waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers, race switcher locomotives, and ferries, tugboats, and towboats. For some key points, the combustion category was allocated $60 million, and the first installment is for $30 million. The VW program is statewide and is available to both public and private entities to replace or repower older vehicles or equipment with the cleanest commercially available internal combustion or hybrid technologies. This is a competitive solicitation, and at least 50% of the funds are expected to be used for projects benefiting disadvantaged or low-income communities. To apply, you'll use our web-based application portal. There are no paper applications. Everything is electronic. The first step is to register as an applicant, which is identified as the legal owner of the vehicle or equipment, or an engine manufacturer applying on behalf of the legal owner. You're allowed to, but not required, to have a consultant help you through the application process. If you're using a consultant, you'll need to assign them an application you've created in the web-based portal so they're able to work on it. However, a consultant cannot sign an application for the applicant. If you choose not to use a consultant, South Coast AQMD staff is available to help you with any questions you may have. And if you're interested, we have more information on using a consultant in the resources section of our VW website. Please note, you cannot start any work on a funded project until a contract is executed. As for out-of-state international registration plans, IRPs, they're eligible if you can show 90% operation in California. Regarding general eligibility requirements, to be eligible, you'll need to demonstrate that for the past 2 years, your existing vehicle or equipment was operated at least 90% of the time in California. And if you're funded, the new unit must also meet this criteria. Old and new units have to be available for inspections. And fleets must be in compliance with all state and federal regulations. And lastly, the old unit needs to be destroyed. As for some general funding information, there's a funding limitation of $1.5 million per entity for this solicitation, so you can apply for multiple units. And as always, the total award amount can't exceed the actual cost of the new unit. Co-funding can't be combined with any state funds, and other funding sources would be considered on a case-by-case basis. However, there may be other incentives, such as the Alternative Fuel Excess Tax Credit, which is a tax credit in the amount of up to 50 cents per gallon for some alternative fuels, including natural gas. The following slides will go into more details about funding and eligibility criteria. But this slide is a great reference tool and is available for download on our VW website. Starting with on-road vehicles, Class 7 and 8 freight trucks, waste haulers, dump trucks, and concrete mixers are eligible for funding. Replacement or repower technology must be certified at or below the optional low NOx standard of 0.02 grams per brake horsepower hour. Class 7 and 8 are differentiated by their gross vehicle weight rating, and eligible engine model years for this solicitation are 2005 to 2012 for non-drayage freight trucks and 2007 to 2012 for drayage trucks, which should be compliant with all current regulations. Next up are locomotives. For the VW program, funding is limited to freight switcher locomotives only, which must be replaced or repowered to Tier 4 standards. The old engine must be pre-Tier 1. The unit must operate at least 1,000 hours annually, and the engine horsepower must be between 1,006 and 2,300. Lastly, we have marine vessels. Only ferries, tugs, and tows are eligible. And for this category, only repowers to Tier 4 or hybrid with Tier 4 emission standards are allowed. The O engine must be pre-Tier 3, and the vessel must serve a dedicated purpose. For example, a ferry that also does private excursions would not be eligible. Moving on to funding. The VW program has 2 different funding caps, of which the lesser amount is awarded. The first cap is the percentage of the unit cost, and the second cap is a set dollar amount. These limits are different between public and private entities. For trucks, if you're a government agency, the caps are either you can receive up to 100% the cost for a replacement truck or $85,000. It's likely that the cost will exceed $85,000, Well, that would still be the capped award amount since it's the lesser amount. Now, if you're private, funding is at 25% of the cost of the unit or 50% specifically for Class 8 drayage trucks, not exceeding the $85,000 cap. Repowers follow the same logic, but just with different percentages and maximum dollar caps. To help everyone understand this a little bit better, we'll have some funding examples coming up soon. Switcher locomotives also follow this logic, just with different percentages and maximum dollar amounts. The dollar cap is $1.35 million for both replacement and repower. For repowers, this amount would be for the entire unit, regardless of the number of engines. For marine vessels, replacements are not eligible, only repowers. And the $1 million cap is for the entire vessel, regardless of the number of engines to be repowered. The following slides are examples of how to calculate the potential award amount. In the first scenario, we're replacing a Class A freight truck that is not a drayage truck. This truck is owned by a private entity, and the cost of the new truck is $200,000. We reference our funding table to obtain the two caps and see that 25% of $200,000 is $50,000, which is less than the $85,000 cap. We take the lower of the two, so the award amount is $50,000. Now, if we took the exact same scenario but changed it to a drayage truck, we start by checking our funding table. We will find that a government, non-government Class 8 drayage truck has a percentage cap of 50% of the cost of the unit. So $100,000 in this case, but the maximum funding cap is $85,000, and you cannot exceed that amount, which makes it our final award amount. Let's now go quickly over some estimated timelines and basic application requirements. Once again, solicitation for the combustion category is currently open and will close on March 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Once solicitation closes, we'll begin evaluation, ranking, project selection, then contracting. Projects are anticipated to be contracted by the first quarter of 2021. By mid-2021 to 2022, we're expecting all award payments to be made. We're also expecting applicant annual reporting to happen between 2021 to 2024, and the next few slides will go into more of those details. So what do you need to begin an application? You'll need a copy of your vehicle title or proof of ownership for switchers and marine vessels. You'll need to provide 24 months of usage records, insurance documentation, and for on-road vehicles, 24 months of vehicle registration, a vendor quote, and engine information for new and old units with photos as the supporting documentation. What happens during evaluation? We're checking to make sure your project meets all eligibility and compliance requirements. We're calculating NOx emissions reductions, determining how much funding a project is allowed, and ranking each project against all other projects received. Ranking is based on the cost effectiveness of the NOx emissions reduced. Afterwards, Project selected will receive a contract, which for this program will be 3 years. The contract will have requirements to meet milestones such as in-service dates of the new units, which currently will be by December 31st, 2021, or the date stated in the contract, whichever is earlier. Usage, demonstrating 90% operation in California, reporting, record keeping, and allowing the program administrator access to vehicle or equipment inspections and record audits. When do you get paid? Payment is by reimbursement and only after we've received a complete and valid invoice, verified that program requirements have been met, ensured that the new unit has been placed into service, and finally, all inspections are completed and we received proof of old unit destruction. Do you need to keep records? The answer is yes. After your contract is executed, you need to submit 3 years of annual reports, but keep all program records for at least 6 years, and demonstrate that the units operate within California for the term of the contract. That concludes the main presentation. Now we'll go over some common questions that came up during registration. Do I get paid in advance? As mentioned previously, payment is by reimbursement only. The VW program is not a rebate or a voucher-based program. What is considered work performed? Work performed includes physical changes made to existing vehicles or equipment. Can I order vehicles or equipment before I'm under contract? Having a purchase order prior to an executed contract will not deem your project ineligible. However, you must demonstrate that there are no financial obligations, you cannot take possession of the new unit, and placing an order prior to contract execution is done so at the risk of the applicant. An example of a purchase order with no financial obligation will be one where no down payment has been made or the down payment is fully refundable. What if I'm not able to meet the in-service date milestone? This will be on a case-by-case basis and depend on the compliance of the unit and if other milestones were met. Are zero-emission vehicles eligible for this solicitation? Not under the combustion category. However, we anticipate the zero-emission Class 8 freight and port trade trucks category to open later this year. If you have any other questions or want additional information, please visit our website at aqmd.gov/VW. I encourage everybody to take a look at the resources section, where you'll find the funding and eligibility table, frequently asked questions, a guide for using a consultant, and much, much more. And of course, you can also reach us via phone or email. We also included some helpful links, such as the California VW webpage administered by the 3 air districts, and links to information by CARB, such as the BMP. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you for joining us.